What if I told you that spirituality has nothing to do with religion? Would you believe me? If I'm being honest with you, I wouldn't have believed me. And once I learned this information, my entire perspective shifted, and the way I approach my life also shifted. And I feel like for the first time, I began to live a fulfilling life. And I know that if you are here, that's what you desire. You desire to show up to your life fully, embracing your intuition, enjoying your authenticity, and being the true version of you every single day with ease and with flow. And that's why today I'm super excited because I am kicking off a 4-part series on spiritual awakenings, on what it takes to experience a spiritual awakening, on what are these stages you're going to experience while you go through a spiritual awakening, and what goes beyond this awakening once you have experienced it. I'm going to be sharing with you everything I've learned in the last 14 years that I've been consciously caring for myself and awakening to the highest version of who I am. So if you're here for that, you are in the right place. Welcome to the Yenory podcast. My name is Yenory and I am your host. I am a spiritual guide, Garifuna High Priestess, that focuses on supporting intuitive Black women entrepreneurs into being the most authentic, abundant, and confident version of themselves. And today, I am your mentor and I am your guide. So for episode 1 of this series, I wanted to focus on diving deeper into what is spirituality beyond religion. I don't know about you, but I grew up thinking that spirituality and religion were the same thing. Let me know if that's what you grew up thinking as well in the comments below. And as I've gone through my process of growing and that dove deeper into my consciousness and awakened to all these things that I didn't know were happening, that were dormant within me, as I began to align with the highest version of myself, I began to discover that my scope, my perspective around spirituality was very limited. I adopted a bunch of borrowed beliefs from the people around me that were basically saying, if you're spiritual, it means that you're religious. And that was not the truth. So I like to start with, what does it mean to be spiritual? What does the word spiritual even mean? So if you look up the word spiritual, if you see me turn to the side because I got my notes here, I'm actually going to pause right now and I want you to take a moment to grab your journal, grab a bottle of water, grab a pen so that you can jot down these nuggets. If not, you can put them down in the comments so that you can remember what really stood out to you during this conversation, because baby, I'm bringing you the heat, okay? So now that you've done that, let's talk about what is the definition of spirituality. So to look at this definition, I wanted to focus more on what it meant to be spiritual. And I began to see these words like soul and what else came up for me when I was looking at this word? Hold on. Soul and psyche and inner self, inner being, life force, all these words. And I started to go deeper and deeper and deeper until I got to the root. Okay. So if you look up the word spirit, which is the root word of spiritual in modern, I think it's called Middle English, it comes from the Anglo-Norman French word, which is spiritu in Latin. And if you look up spiritu in Latin, it means to breathe spirit. And if you go even deeper than that, you're going to find the word spirare. And the word spirare means breathe. Now, isn't that something? To be spiritual simply means to breathe. So if you are a human being that's breathing, guess what? You are spiritual. And when I learned this, y'all, I was blown away, because that is beyond anything I ever understood a spiritual to be or spirituality to be. And it really messed with my head at first, because I associated being a spiritual being with being religious. And when I began to dive deeper into my learnings and I learned that to be spiritual, it means to simply breathe, I could tell you I felt like a huge weight was lifted on my shoulders. Did you know that that's what he meant? Did you know the spirit at its core comes from the root word breathe, that means to breathe? Because I didn't know that. And after I learned that information, everything started to make sense to me in a different way because I suddenly had this freedom to be who I was and to connect with everything around me that I had casted to the side because of religion. I didn't grow up in a religious household. I had family members who were religious, who were very Catholic. My mother, though, she wasn't attached to a specific religion. She always actually considered herself to be a spiritual person. And I didn't know what that meant. So I actually have had these things within me for a really long time, even though I didn't know the meaning, even though I didn't know this information. So as I began to look these things up in my older years, it just made a lot of sense for me. And this is why I want to do this series because I know that not many people know that a spiritual, at the root of it, it means to breathe. And they are creating a relationship with spirituality that doesn't serve them. And I know that when you are able to tap into your spirituality, when you are able to attune to your spiritual nature, because you already are that, you're breathing, you're spiritual, done deal. You are able to live a life that brings you joy. You are able to live a life that lights you up. You are able to live a life that simply takes your breath away. And I know because I'm living that life. And it wasn't always that way. In 2016, I was very depressed. I had experienced the death of my favorite uncle. This was someone that I loved dearly. If I talk to you about this person longer than a minute, I can easily start crying because it's something that I continue to experience and grieve. Because grief is like that. Grief doesn't just happen and then it's gone. And when my uncle was killed, actually, I didn't have a grieving manual. I didn't. And I really was challenged quite a bit by this experience because he was my anchor. If there's a person in your family that you love, that you can call for anything, that you don't have to be anything for this person, they are unconditional to you. When everybody turns their back on you, that person is picking up the phone to call and check on you. If you have that person, think about that person in your family. That was my uncle to me. That was a person that he was in my life. We had such a beautiful relationship. And when he passed away, that groundedness, that sense of safety was gone. And I didn't even know it. I learned that way later. I want to say he's been he's been gone now, or he transitioned in 2016. It's about to be 10 years. It's 8 years right now. And I would say it wasn't until maybe 6 years after he transitioned that I began to see some of these things and the depth to which I was experiencing them. And when he passes away and my sense of safety gets completely removed, it was like he was pulled right under my feet. I started to feel like I was falling down and I was never hitting ground. And this was a period of time that was very dark for me because I was yearning for answers and I didn't have them. And after 8 months of going through this very intense period of time, 8 months of dreading going to work because I had a job at the time, 8 months of having a very difficult time communicating with my husband. We were arguing pretty much every day over the freaking dishes because I wasn't doing the dishes when he wanted me to do the dishes or when I had agreed to do the dishes. I'll be honest, I was saying I'm gonna do the dishes and I wasn't doing them. I was having a really difficult time doing regular day to day activities because of the pain in my heart, because of the weight in my spirit that I was feeling, knowing that someone I loved very deeply was now gone or had transitioned. And 8 months into this depression, and at the time, I didn't know it was depression. I remember my husband asked me, well, what do you think your uncle would have wanted for you? And it was the first time I looked at that. It was the first time I reflected on it. It was the first time I even considered it. And it was such a powerful question to ask me because my uncle actually used to give me a message every single time I would talk to him. He would tell me, I want you to do what brings you joy. I want you to do what lights you up. I want you to do what you want to do. Don't do what society wants you to do. Do what you want to do. Anytime I would call him to ask for advice and to tell him, hey, what do you think I should do? He would give me that answer. I want you to do what brings you joy, what lights your spirit, what you want to do. Don't do what society wants you to do. Do what you want to do. And when my husband asked me that 8 months after my uncle had transitioned, I realized that I had no idea what I wanted to do. Like, I had no freaking idea what brought me joy. I was so focused on checking boxes off the list. Going to college, check. Getting a bachelor's, yeah, check. Getting a second bachelor's, check. Getting a master's, check. Marrying somebody, check. Having a beautiful view of the city I was living at, check. Having a director role, check. Having an office, check. I'm just checking all these boxes, y'all. And I didn't realize, I didn't count with getting to the top of the mountain and not enjoying the view. And when this happened, when my uncle transitions, I realized how much I didn't enjoy the view and how bad I felt about it because people around me thought that I should enjoy the view and I should be happy with my life because I was living this amazing life to their eyes. They didn't know what was going on inside me. They didn't know how much I was hurting, how much I was grieving. No one hands you a grieving manual when the person you love passes away. No one hands you a grieving manual for the nights that feel lonely when you want to call them, when you want to hear their voice, when you want to see how they're doing, when you simply want to laugh on the phone with them. No one tells you what to do. And I didn't have that. So I had this very challenging time with grief because I also felt bad for grieving, for the way I wanted to grieve, for having to return to work, for having to go back like nothing had happened. And it was very challenging for me. I had a very difficult time. And once my husband asked me that question, it was like something happened. It was like a light bulb lit up, something clicked. And when this thing clicked, I started to see, like, okay, he wouldn't have wanted me to be like this. He would have wanted me to do what brings me joy. And what brings me joy is not doing this, it's not being in this way. And I got the courage to go to therapy. I got the courage to seek help, which for me was very uncomfortable because I was used to seeing people asking for help as being weak, as not being strong enough, as not being the type of people that could hold their own. And to ask for help put me in a very vulnerable position. And at the same time, it helped me. It helped me connect to my own spiritual being. It helped me connect to my breath. I was so busy. I was so busy doing everything for everybody. During a weekend, I will be at everybody's event. If my friends are having a baby shower, if there's a bridal shower, if there is a get together, I'm in all of those events. I'm exhausted from the weekend because I've been doing for everybody and I haven't been doing for me. And when this transition occurs in my life, I go to therapy and I get diagnosed with transitional depression. And in a way, that awareness of that depression is what helped me, was my catalyst into tapping into my spirituality. Because when this happened, I started to connect with myself. I started to pause. I started to meditate at a deeper level. I started to quiet myself. I started to pay attention to what my breath was like. And I started to look at myself differently. I started to look at myself with curiosity. And the more I connected to my spirituality, the more I connected to my breath, the more I realized that I was so out of alignment. First of all, I was living in Washington, D.C. It's cold over there. I don't like the cold. And here I was forcing myself to go work at a place that I wasn't joyful at anymore as well while that was happening. Like there used to be days where I would look outside and it'll be snowing and I was dreading getting out of my bed. I was dreading it and I felt like I had to. I felt like I didn't have a choice. And the more I started to look at myself, the more I realized maybe I have a choice and I haven't owned it. Maybe I have a choice and I haven't decided to make different choices. And I got so much courage from this situation. And I want to share with you some of the things that I got the courage to do as a result of tapping into my own breathing. noticing that I was rushing every moment, noticing that I was not available for me, yet I was available for everybody else. I noticed that I was very focused on pleasing other people. If people were feeling like I wasn't showing up for them, that used to send me into some sense of like fight or flight response. It used to really trigger my sense of safety because I was afraid that if I wasn't the person that was there for everything every single time, and that if everybody wasn't happy with me, they would abandon me, that they wouldn't love me. I started to see all these ways in which I was engaging in self protection. And by extension, it was manifesting as self sabotage. I started to see how I was silencing my voice, how I wouldn't speak up for me because of fear of people not liking what I had to say, because of fear of people not approving of who I was. And that's when the magic started to happen. Because when I noticed these things, I also began to experience the benefits of spirituality, the benefits of connecting with your breath, the benefit of connecting with your inner self, your inner being. And I want to share with you 4 benefits that I experienced. The first benefit was being in stillness. I used to be like, go, 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 go. I grew up in New York City. I'm originally from Honduras, where I am right now. And when I was 8, I moved to New York, where I lived for most of my life. And let me tell you something, New Yorkers, we don't got time. They don't have time for nothing because they got places to be. They got things to do. All right. So the last thing we got is time to be still. At least that's what I thought it was. And when I began to connect with my spirituality, when I began to connect with my breath, when I began to quiet myself, I was able to sit in stillness. In the moment I sat in stillness, I started to listen to my intuition with ease. And suddenly, all the things I felt like I was locked into became options for me. Write that down. Whatever you feel like you are locked into right now in your life is simply an option. You have other options. And for me, I started to see that that job I was going to, which used to be my dream job back when I used to dream of labor, was no longer an option I wanted to give life to. I started to realize that the place I was living was no longer the option I wanted to give my energy to. And here's what ended up happening. I quit that job. I sure did. I submitted my resignation letter to this job and I walked away from it. My husband also walked away from his job at the same time, or from the job he had, because they weren't our jobs. And we decided to move from DC and go to Florida. Why Florida? Because we looked up what was the city that had the record for the most sunniest days during the year. And guess what it was? St. Petersburg, Florida. Do we know people in St. Pete? Not really. Have we ever been to St. Pete? I have been to St. Pete for a training once and I was in a hotel the whole time. Do we have family in St. Pete? Not at all. Do we have jobs waiting in St. Pete? Nope. We wanted to trust our intuition. We wanted to listen to the inner guidance, and we did it. So we took this huge leap of faith and we decided to go on the journey to focus on what brought us joy and what lit us up. The second benefit that I got from tapping into my spirituality and connecting really with the inner being was being in silence. And being in silence was very powerful for me because I'm used to always being available for people. So I'm always hearing things. And then I was constantly listening to things in my mind. So I was overthinking a lot. And the overthinking became analysis paralysis because I wanted to be perfect. So I was constantly tweaking, like, how can I be a perfect person? How can I be the perfect friend? How can I be the perfect daughter? The whole time I was stuck in my head. And being in silence, helped me start to process and feel my feelings with calm, to feel my feelings with ease, and to begin to experience feeling the feelings without becoming them. I noticed that underneath all these things I was doing, I had a lot of resentment because people weren't doing for me what I was doing for them. because I wasn't doing it because I wanted to. I was doing it because I was afraid that they wouldn't be accepting me. Pay attention to that. Are you doing things because you desire to, or are you doing things because you want people to accept you? Because one of those is going to lead to joy, and one of them is going to lead to resentment. And I was in the energy of resentment. I started to see how much I was challenged with the energy of fear of rejection. And I began to feel those feelings. I began to allow myself to go to my emotional closet and look within and look at everything that was coming out. And let me tell you, it was scary stuff at first. Slowly, it became easier and easier. Just like when you clean a closet. At first, it feels like this is a lot. There's a lot in this closet. And slowly, you take one item at a time. You take one item at a time, one item at a time, one step at a time, one foot in front of the other, and then the closet becomes clean. And then you find more things to address. And the way you address them is no longer with this fear and this anxiety. You now address them with ease. And that's what I was able to experience because I tapped into myself, because I tapped into my spiritual nature. And I'm going to give you a third benefit as well. I'm going to give you four. Before I go into the third one, listen, I'm in a space right now where I'm enrolling clients for a beautiful experience that's called Intuitive Icons. And if as you're watching this video, you're feeling like, yo, Yenory, you're talking to me, you are giving me the tea, then I want to invite you to apply for a spot. This is not for everybody. This is for intuitive Black women entrepreneurs that are desiring, that are yearning to be the version of themselves that is free, that are yearning to show up authentically and enjoy their authenticity, that are yearning to embrace their intuitive nature and that voice that guides them from within. And they want to do it at a deeper level because they've been doing it. Now they want to live the life they've co-created with God and they want to enjoy it. If that's you, there's a link below this video where you can click to apply for a soulful soiree with me. 45 minutes of you and I doing this, diving into you, into the most beautiful version of you, and allowing you to see all the ways in which you can begin to be that version of you right now. You don't have to wait till the business is doing some type of numbers. You don't have to wait till the kids are doing some type of thing. You don't have to wait till the husband is doing some type of thing. You can start enjoying your life right now, especially because it's a life that you work very hard to co-create. So if that's you, there's the link below in the video description. Make sure you click that video link and join me for a soulful soiree because we're going to have a great time. I'm a vibe, you're a vibe, so I know it's going to be a whole vibe. Benefit number 4. Let's get back to these benefits. I began to keep life simple. Prior to me tapping into my spirituality, I was complicating everything because I was thinking about other people. I wasn't thinking about myself. So I was looking at how can I show up in a way that I'm going to be pleasing others. And in that process, I was sacrificing me. I was sacrificing my desires. I was sacrificing my vision. I was sacrificing my energy so that I can be accepted for other people. And my life was very complicated. I was always doing things for everybody. I really had time for myself. I had so many things that were, it was exhausting. It was really exhausting living life the way that I was living it. And once I began to tap into my spirituality, I began to, I'll say, slow down. In reality, I began to return to my natural pace. I began to return to my inner rhythm. And that was magical. That was so magical for me because I started to shift my beliefs. I started to see that even when I wasn't showing up for people the way I was showing up before, the people that love me continued to love me. And I began to release these lies that I had to be something to be accepted by the people I love. I started to release and let melt away this borrowed beliefs that in order for people to be in my life, I had to sacrifice my well-being. I began to treat myself differently. I began to care for myself differently. I began to prioritize my mental health because I saw that what I believed was extremely powerful and impactful in my life. And I did this in a very simple way. I studied the works of Eckhart Tolle. I studied the works of Neville Goddard. I studied the works of Don Miguel Ruiz. I studied the works of who else? Who else have I been studying? Um, oh, I have some here. Yes, Hendrix, Bronnie Ware, who wrote The Top Five Regrets of the Dying. Powerful book, by the way. Write that book down. And the more I began to study these things, the more I dove deeper into texts. I've read over 350 books by now, all on business, self improvement, spirituality, the esoteric, self love, self care. Like, I've read a whole bunch of texts around these things. I started to see, oh, my belief system is not in alignment. And I began to release those beliefs. I began to think different things. And the powerful thing about shifting your belief system is that when you shift your belief, you also shift how your life looks and operates. And when you shift your belief and you shift the way you navigate your emotions, that's where the magic takes place, because you do things because you feel like doing them. So if you don't feel like doing them, you're not going to do them. And your thoughts impact how you feel, and how you feel impacts what you think. So as I began to make these changes, what I feel began to change. So what I thought also began to change. And what I thought began to change, and how I felt also began to change. And I began to become closer and closer into inner alignment with the version of myself I desired to be, what we call the highest self. And that, honestly, I feel like that's been one of the most powerful pieces of this process for me, to be honest, because it was challenging at first. It was very uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie to you. This is an uncomfortable path. When people say get comfortable being uncomfortable, it's not a joke. It's not a cliche. It's the real effing deal. You hear me? And I began to experience that. And I began to see that there were different types of discomfort. And I'll talk more about those down the line in this series, probably in episode number 3, where we go into the 4 stages of spiritual awakenings. And I began to see all these things about myself. And there was a 4th benefit. And this benefit is really what brought things together. This was embracing surrender. When you are used to wanting to control everything and everyone, surrender is a very challenging thing to embrace, because you want to control the uncontrollables. I was taught to control things that I couldn't control. I was taught that I could control how people felt about me. Hence why I was people pleasing, because I wanted to control how people felt about me. I was taught to think that I could control what people thought about me. I literally grew up hearing this line in Spanish, ¿Qué va a decir la sociedad? What are people going to think about you? So I was operating from this space where I was doing all the things so that I could control what people thought about me. I can't control that. I can only control myself. I can only control the way I respond or react to situations. I can only control the things that I say. I don't control how it's received. And these things I thought I could control began to be really clear to me that I couldn't. And that was very uncomfortable to experience. I told you, this is an uncomfortable journey, an uncomfortable dance, because you're learning and unlearning. And at times it can feel really hard to unlearn some of the things that you have learned for so many years. And when I began to surrender, when I began to let that ish flow, when I began to let it all go, and as I continue to let it all go, because this is a process, this doesn't end, this is a cycle. And as you reach a new level in your life, whether it be in your career, in your romantic relationships, in your platonic relationships, if you have children, you're going to find yourself in this process over and over again. The more that happened to me, the more I started to feel fulfilled, because I felt full and filled by my decisions. Write that down. Fulfillment comes from feeling full and filled by your decisions, by feeling good about your decisions, by feeling good about who you're being in the world and how you're showing up, by feeling good about the things that you say, the things that you do, the values that you uphold, and the way you show up to those values. That's where I really identify fulfillment to be. It wasn't in my achievements. And I know how to achieve. I have a whole bunch of achievements. You see some of my degrees right here. It wasn't there. And I thought that's where it was. It was in me being full and filled with joy with my decisions. That's where fulfillment started to happen for me. And this journey of spirituality is what took me there. It's what really began to unlock these things for me and also make them make sense. Because for a while, they didn't. And I was able to let go of my attachment to people. I continue to let go of my attachment to people, the attachment, because it's not mine, I don't take ownership of it. The attachment to circumstances, the attachment to spaces, the attachment to environments. I was able to move through that and continue to move through that because of that connection with spirituality. So where does this leave you? Because I want to give you some practical steps that you can take with you from this beautiful conversation you and I just had, because it is a conversation. I'm really going to be looking in the comments for you and your takeaways from this video. I'm going to be looking there for you to see what was the thing that really resonated with you. I'm going to be looking in those comments to see what questions are coming up for you, because again, this is a relationship you and I have together where we are here in community. I desire for you to be able to tap into the things I'm sharing so that you know you're not alone in your own journey, in your own dance with co-creation. Because it's not really a journey. A journey has a purpose to get somewhere. A dance is for the love of the game. And that's what we do. That's where we are. We are dancing with co-creation. We are dancing with life. I want to share with you a very practical challenge. I'm going to issue you a challenge, okay, to support you during the next 4 weeks. We're going to be doing this 4-part series on spiritual awakenings, starting with today. Here's your challenge. I am issuing you a 2-minute challenge. Don't be fooled by the 2-minute challenge, okay? For the next 30 days, here's what I am going to invite you to play with. Don't take this too seriously. Give yourself grace. Have fun with this, okay? Here it is. Every day, 2 minutes meditation. It could be whatever meditation you want to do. It could be a body scan meditation. It could be a sitting still meditation. It could be a walking meditation. 2 minutes. 2 minutes of journaling. Journaling has been a big part of my process. I've been journaling for now 20 years. I have literally over 20 years of journals. I recently found my journal from 2004. That's how back I can go, how far back I can go in journaling. Listen, I am a advocate for journaling. I go hard for journaling. So I'm going to give you a journaling prompt that you can reflect on daily for 2 minutes. And that is, how's my spirit today? Write that down at the top of your page and write for 2 minutes. How's my spirit today? Number 3, 2 minutes of movement. You can do this as a walk outside. Just go walk outside. You can do some yoga poses if you're into that. You can do a jog if you want to. You can do whatever you want for 2 minutes. Just move for 2 minutes, okay? If you do 2 minutes walking outside and you're doing a 2-minute meditation while you're walking, you see, you get in 2 in 1 right there. Very, very simple. Keep it simple. If you keep it simple, you're not going to have an issue with consistency, because we all know how to be consistent. We consistently go and do things we don't like all the time. What happens is we make things complicated, and then we don't feel like doing it because it's complicated and we think it's a lot. So when you keep it simple, it's easy. It's easier to execute on those things and to show up in that way. In your last 2-minute challenge piece is 2 minutes of reading. 2 minutes of reading. You can read whatever book you enjoy. I just share some authors that I love, like Eckhart Tolle. I shared Neville Goddard. You see his book right here. I shared Don Miguel Ruiz, who wrote The Four Agreements. Those are like my top 3 because I like to read 12 books repeatedly in a year. And those are some of the authors that I read every single year. And you can listen to this podcast, because when you're listening to this, you're also reprogramming your mind. That's why we do that. We listen to these authors and this text and we read so that we can reprogram our mind and see what belief systems we have and how do we feel about those beliefs. So that is your 2-minute challenge that I'm issuing you for the next 4 weeks. 2 minutes of meditation, 2 minutes of movement outside, 2 minutes of journaling or self-reflecting. Use the journaling prompt I shared with you. How is my spirit today? In 2 minutes of reading or listening to something that helps you deprogram your thinking and explore what's going on in your mind. I want to share something really powerful with you. This 2 minute challenge is how I started. I started with this 2 minute challenge. And because I started with that 2 minute challenge, I'm not able to do things that I wouldn't have ever imagined. Meditation wise, I can sit for over an hour and a half actually. And I can sit in stillness and I can listen to myself and I can tap into my inner voice. And that has brought so much joy to my life. When it comes to journaling, I've been journaling for 20 years and I can look at those journals and I can learn about myself. I can let my past self mentor my future self. And I can leave notes for my future self so that she knows where I was in certain situations. And when I am looking at my life, I can learn from myself. And the most beautiful thing I've experienced is learning from myself. Yes, it's great to help you and help you learn about the things I've experienced. Ultimately, though, my desire is that you're going to learn about you from you because you are a powerful teacher. When it comes to movement, I love movement. I've ran 2 marathons. The type of mental toughness that you got to have to run a marathon, if you run a marathon, you know the vibes. If you haven't run a marathon, then you also know the vibes. There's a reason why you haven't done it. And there's the reason why those that have. Mental toughness. You're able to really tap into yourself, into your thinking, into your ability to shift the things. This is why reading is so important and powerful. And like I share with you, I've read over 350 books. I've read so many freaking books, and I've learned quite a bit from those books. If you're feeling like you are already doing things that I shared with you in the 2 minute challenge, and you're like, Yenory, I already got this 2 minute challenge going, girl. Like, this thing's done deal for me. I'm already doing my workouts. I'm already doing my reprogramming and reading. I got my meditation down pat. And I'm also sitting with my feelings and my emotions and reflecting on myself. If that's you and you're like, what's next? Then you may be ready to come play with intuitive icons, because that's the type of thing we are doing there. We're taking this foundation to the next level so that we can enjoy our lives, so we can feel fun and filled with our decisions. And maybe that's a space for you. So if you want to explore if you are in alignment with this love offering, hit the description box below and click on the link so that you can apply for a spot for intuitive icons. What's going to happen when you click on that link, you're going to submit an application and you're going to have the opportunity to schedule a soulful soiree with me, which is a 45-minute conversation in which you and I, it's not just a conversation, it's an experience. We're going to have a great time exploring the highest version of you, the things that she's looking forward to, and the things that she's desiring to expand in your life. So if that's you, there's the link below in the description box. Make sure you click it and you join me for a soulful soiree. If that's not you, listen, stay tuned to this series. It's going to be a whole vibe. In the next episode, we are going to dive deep into part 2. And part 2 is all about what does it feel like to go through a spiritual awakening. Now that we are on the same page about spirituality and the root of spirituality and what it means and how it has nothing to do with religion, we can talk now about how does it feel? What does it feel like to go through a spiritual awakening? Because if you have not had a conscious spiritual awakening, it's coming. More and more awakenings are coming because we are currently undergoing a full awakening as a collective. So I know that it's only a matter of time before you have your own spiritual awakening, or maybe you're experiencing one right now. Either way, this is going to be a very important episode for you, and I look forward to seeing you next week at 6 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern for episode numero 2. Thank you for joining me today, mis amores. My name is Yenory Ponso. I am a spiritual guide and Garifuna High Priestess, and I'm here to make sure that you see things clearly. I'll see you in the next video. Hasta luego.